Welcome to the first video of Olly's Lockup. I am going to be doing a few videos. I don't know if they're going to go well, don't know if they're going to go badly or ugly, but I'm going to attempt to do a few videos and document what I'm going to be doing over the next few months. Looking back over my karting and racing, I haven't got much in the way of videos, I haven't got much in the way of pictures, and it would be nice, I think, going forward, because I've got a few wacky ideas, I've got a few projects that I'm going to be doing. I'd like to document them and look back on them when I'm old. Maybe if the kids are interested as well, maybe it'd be nice for them to look back on what Daddy was doing in his garage during this time. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I've got one project that I'm going to start with, and it's a bit of a random one. And the way it came about is a bit random. So I'll tell the story from the beginning, really. So in the mid-90s, I remember seeing an article in the karting magazine it was a picture of a Rotax DSD, which at the time was very new. And it's the meanest of all the kart engines, looks-wise, with the plates up the side, and it captured the imagination anyway. But then I saw this one and it was like strange because it had two carburetors. It was a rotary valve, 100cc engine, and it was a rotary valve, two carburetted jobby. So nothing had ever been done like that before, and in the karting world. And it was just one of these random things, and I never saw it raced. I never saw it out in the next few years. It was homologated for the next 3 years. I never saw it out on circuit. But it was just, so it just kind of, I remember seeing it and thought, oh, that's random, that looks cool. And that was it. But then, must be, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago maybe, a friend of mine ended up tracking down a rotary valve cover and I think a complete bottom end. And I think it was from Holland. And he bought it and ended up making the engine that I had seen back in the day. And I was pleased for him, and it was like, pleased but jealous as well. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. And I didn't think anything more of it. But then randomly, myself and my friend Tim London ended up seeing an advert that was in Holland for just a job lot of a massive amount of Rotax. Rotax, if for anyone who doesn't know, is an engine manufacturer. They used to do really good engines in the 100cc era, and then they ended up unfortunately making the Rotax Max, which is just basically killed 100cc karting. So they've kind of got blood on their hands there. But before that, before the late 90s, they were some of the top. Since like 1988, they were one of the top players. So anyway, I digress. So I bought this job lot of Rotax stuff alongside Tim London. And we split it 50-50, and we sold a load of parts and we got our money back, and we kept a few bits. And we were going through this kind of, I remember going through, like, in his living room, these boxes and boxes of stuff, and it was just laid out everywhere. And it was just, you don't know what's going to be in the next box. We had a few pictures of what we bought before we bought it. But when it arrived on a fucking pallet, all wrapped up and stuff, it was really quite exciting to go through it all. And we're pulling stuff out, and we're like, oh, what's this and what's that? And there's a few sedan bits, like, which is 125. And there was a few water-cooled bits, a few air-cooled bits. And then I pulled out the box, this thing. And I was like, I know what that is. And I thought I knew what it is. That's the one I saw a picture of back in the day. A rotary valve cover for two carbs. And it was all Rotax stuff, so it all kind of fit the bill. And I was all excited. But then I had a Rotax DSD. And I knew that this did look a little bit small. And I put it up to the Rotax DSD, and this didn't fit. And also the stud spacings of all these holes, they didn't fit. So I was a bit miffed. And I spoke to a few people. because it all kind of added up. A lot of the stuff that I got was ex-Haziman's, which was a big Rotax player, and I don't know how you describe him, but he was the Rotax. You could call him an importer of sorts, but I think there was something to do with the fact that when they first started, they because they were an Austrian company, they weren't in the. There was something to do with tax and stuff like that. They couldn't go into sell into Europe or something like that. Anyway, I digress again. But I put 2 and 2 together eventually. Took me a while, and thought to myself, this is the development rotary valve cover for what ended up being the 2 carburetor DSD. Does this fit a DSC, which was the previous homologation? Because you don't just make a DSD with 2. You just don't just put it into production. You got to test it, and if you got to test it, you're going to probably do it in the previous homologation, which is the previous load of engines, which was the DSC. So then I got I haven't got a DSC, but what I've done is taken the measurements. My mate's got a DSC, and it fits. The outside diameter of this, and also where the rotary valve sits, and also all the stud spacings, they fit a Rotax DSC. So the next job was thinking to myself, well, Rotax DSC never had and never made an inboard, and that hasn't got a hole for the crank to come out of. So this is definitely an inboard. So I'm like, what do I do? So luckily I've got a crank from a DS, I think it's either from a DSE or a DSD, and it's an inboard crank. So, and I'm aware for the anoraks out there, I'm fully aware that Rotax had a 50.5 stroke in the DSC era, and they went another millimetre stroke in the DSD and DSE era. But it doesn't really matter. That's, you know, at the end of the day, if I can still make this, if I have to jack the barrel up of a DFC, if I can make this happen from what I believe is the prototype, which is rare as, I mean, it was rare to find the 2 carb rotary valve for a DSD. This is about as rare as it comes, as far as in historic karting, in classic karting, in 100cc karting. I would say this is about as rare as you get. So in my opinion, it needs to be shared, and it needs to, for the anoraks out there that are like me, who appreciate this kind of stuff, who appreciate rare stuff. So to the vast majority of the karting public, they're just going to look at this probably and go, you're just a bit of a fucking weird nutter. Yes, but it deserves to be put on an engine. So what I've done, I've bought off a mate of mine, Sam, an engine. I haven't opened it up yet, and the idea is I'm going to see whether that fits on the DSC, and I'm going to see whether then that crank will fit in a DSC. I think the crank's going to be the dodgy one, but we'll see if it can work. So that's the plan anyway. So join me on the journey. There'll probably be ups and downs. The crank probably won't fit. It'll have to be potentially machining of the crankcases. It's not going to be easy, but it deserves to be done, and it deserves to be run, and that's going to be the first project. Right, let's have a look at the engine I bought off my mate Sam Wadeson. I told him about this, and he did me a deal because he wants to see it done. So thank you, Sam. I appreciate it, mate. So let's have a look what we got here. Yeah, well, it's definitely a DSC, so we're in business. Boom. Let's get it open. Let's have a look. So I knew the crank was going to be a bastard, and it is. So the inboard crank of the DSE I've got, which is going to need to be used, as I said, because there's no such thing as a DSC crank for this engine that is inboard. So the sprocket side, which will be on the inside, which is not usually the sprocket side, is going to be here, and unfortunately this diameter where the main bearing sits is obviously larger in the later engine than the one there, so it doesn't sit in there. So what I'm going to have to potentially get done, there's two ways of doing it. You either get a bearing that has that sits in there, so the outside diameter of the bearing is the same, but the inside diameter is larger, which may compromise. I don't know whether it's possible. It's possible to probably get a bearing, but whether or not they're going to last, whether or not they're going to run correctly, is don't know. So I'll have to look into that. If not, then if the only bearing I can get is one that is going to be bigger everywhere, then these cases will have to get machined. The same story is on the other side. So as you can see, I'm going to need to put some new stuffers in this crank because they've overheated at some stage. It's not a biggie. Well, it is a biggie, to be honest with you, because that, as you can see, is going to be a bastard to get out, but it is what it is. I've got to make do. You know, I haven't got loads of money, so as you can see, this engine isn't in the best condition with the crankcases and so on, but it was as cheap as they come. So as I can't be affording to throw buckets of money at anything right now, but it does deserve to be built. So this obviously fits in there again, same gig, and then you get loader. So same problem. Well, what I can show you, I'm hoping, I haven't tested this out yet, but she all lines up with the holes, the fixing holes, but there's a big but, because as you can see, actually on the left hand side, I don't know if you can see that there, that's almost here. It's not going to need much at all. I mean, look, those holes are all lined up perfectly. So the intake on this side, we're nearly there. You know, it's not bad at all. But on that side, we are way out. Way out. So look at that. All that's going to have to come our way. It all can be done, and it'll be good fun doing it. It's just fucking mad. So also what I can do is probably get down a couple of carbs. No. Should we go? You can see if butterflies work. Let's pick a couple of Baronis. Fucking hell. Well, for some reason that's not going on fully. I think that one of these is slightly bent, but yeah. But anyway, you can kind of see where it's a fucking monster. And then if I could try some proper carbs. Again, that won't fit for some reason. Oh yeah, just about. Yeah, we're on. Okay, now that's a bit more like it. Sex, absolute sex. So that's the aim anyway. Lots of steps to go before that is achievable, but nothing worth doing is easy.